Hello everybody, welcome to WhatCulture Gaming. I'm Scott, joined by Ash.
Hello.
Now, did you know that there are some Last of Us 2 details doing the rounds?
I did not. Well, I did a little bit.
A little bit, just a cheeky little bit.
But for the sake of this, no.
I know. So the thing is, you know Gamestop, how they're sort of in the bad books at the minute because of the whole thing that's going on with them sort of shutting down Game Informer or whatever.
Yeah.
They got all their managers together and they showed them a clip of The Last of Us 2. Ooh. Nice bit vertical slice of the current game as it is. And one of their employees just got on Twitter and just started telling people about what they've seen. So I'm assuming there's a bit of a witch hunt on as to tracking down who that employee is. Yeah. But for now, we can break down the new things that are in there. Yeah. Now, there's not a massive amount. It comes from the Twitter account Gaming Forte. Okay. And so they put on a couple of little paragraphs if you sort of go through the thread that they put up. And I think it's worth sort of picking apart. The main thing is that they highlighted that you can use the clickers against human enemies.
That sounds good.
Which is something from the Left Behind DLC. Yeah. Which I really like the idea of because I think that if you're going to sort of expand on the combat in that game, you need more combat options. Yeah. And, you know, everyone thinks when they think of The Last of Us, it's like the listening mode and the basic third-person shooting. And for me, in Left Behind, I like the whole thing where you can sort of plant bait or you can sort of, you know, like goad a team of enemies towards
100%.
someone else.
The bit like when you're in the mall where you've got all of those people you're supposed to sneak past them. I think I just literally just like ran through and then started throwing things. All the clickers came in, and it's great watching them actually take it all apart and everything. Would be very interesting to see played out in an actual full-length title as well. I'm quite glad that's happening.
Because I keep thinking of the gameplay that they've put out so far. There was this whole big like extended thing. I think it's about 10-15 minutes long, where they showed like Ellie going through this sort of like general sort of cityscape kind of area, and it was way more like open-ended. And if you look at like stuff that Naughty Dog have done, like in the Uncharted 4 and Lost Legacy, you've got these much bigger areas with like pockets of enemies in different places. Yeah. So the idea of mushing them all together kind of gives Last of Us 2 a different feel. So I'm pretty game for that. And the next thing down, which is apparently that the clickers have got a bit of a different design. So we talked about this before we came in, but like apparently the clickers, they said that they look more scary and more gory, and apparently they look more decayed as well, which made me think of the different evolutions. Yes. Because there's like 3, 4?
There's 4 that we see in the game, which is the first one, which is the runners, and then we have the stalkers, I think, and then clickers, and then bloaters. I think bloaters is supposed to be the final stage, and then they can die and still grow They can still grow fungals. They can still grow fungus and give off spores.
Because when they're growing the fungals, that's when they're like down and they're just evaporating. And that's the first thing you see.
That's just like they're passed away.
Right. So there must be a stage in between the bloaters, the big fat lads, and the bit on the bottom where this is the stage. Yeah. Where you're just on the ground, sort of decaying and making a big old mess.
Exactly. But like you could do one in between all the other ones that we've seen so far, with the clickers getting to the bloater stage as well, like kind of 3.5. That would be good. I'm
game. I think that if anything that they do that sort of gives, like I said, more enemy variety. Yeah. I didn't know a whole lot of criticisms for The Last of Us. I kind of think it's one of the best games of all time.
It is. I don't even think it just is.
But like, if you're going to sort of like, you know, pick apart things more objectively or whatever, then maybe they could do with more enemy variety outside of the different humans. Yeah. So redesigning the clickers is kind of cool, especially because they have, you know, virus degradation over time. It kind of makes sense that the clickers would look a bit more minging.
I think making them more gory is kind of like The Last of Us is really gory to begin with, so to like up it again, and then we've already seen loads of gore in what the human enemies are doing to each other, and then to have it from the clicker side as well, I feel like it's going to be an absolute like sensory affront when you actually get into it.
As a quick little aside, what do you think of the general sort of tone that they've got for so far with Last of Us 2? Because it is way more disgusting and macabre, and they've you know, human bandits that are sort of gutting people hanging upside down. Like maybe they've made the enemies reflect that. Like, are you a fan so far?
I think like as much as the first one was like hopeful, I think that this one, the first one, it's in like you're going to save the world, you're going to take it to this place, it's going to be able to cure the disease. This one is just kind of like everything has gone to crap, and I think that vibe comes through so well, and the way that they're playing that off, or like this weird hopeless energy that you get after the ending of The Last of Us, is what they've got to play to so much in this one. And I think doing that with gore, with like depressing, oppressive sort of tones with it is perfect. I think it looks dark, I think it looks scary. I think it's going to be a great continuation of the series for tone levels, just going down.
Neil Druckmann also said that it was like they had this, I forget what the word was, because he had this whole like mission statement, this one word that encapsulated the first game. It might have been hope, but apparently the word for the sequel is hate. Ooh. So it's just sort of everything's going to be all dark and macabre and twisted, so it kind of makes sense to do as much sort of, I don't know, macabre stuff as possible. Yeah. So there is that. Another thing in terms of tonality is that the person, or Gaming Forte, noted that the environments were a lot darker. There's a lot more ambience. There's a lot more sort sort of lighting effects and things to sort of bring you into that sort of general darker tonality, which again reminds me of the footage they've already put out. Which kind of looks like it's had its colour drained out of it. The footage where Ellie's exploring the city is very like dark greys and dark blues and things like that. So I guess in terms of the general feel, I'm pretty game. Also, they said that there's an overall focus on stealth, which stealth was obviously in the first game, but it kind of boiled down to just holding the button for the listen mode. And you sort of like, I mean, unless you put it on the extreme thing, you would kind of go in like enemy by enemy. But what do you think about like changing it to sort of being like more of a dedicated stealth game?
I think that's if we're going from Ellie's point of view, which with the DLC, I think that was more of a stealth-based game as well. It was a lot more about sneaking around than it was using Joel's abilities, because playing as Ellie is a lot. You're a little kid, like
you're more fragile.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's how she's learned and grown up, like doing it that sort of method, being sneaky, being sly, and then that's going to play into like her adult character as well. So like as much as she is like hard now, I think using
she's got a tattoo and everything.
Yeah, literally. I think using her stealth abilities and having that as the focal point for the game is good. I think it plays into the horror aspects a lot more as well. If you're going to have gorier enemies, you're going to have more brutal punishments and that sort of thing. You've got to have an element of, oh my god, let me hide from this, please. I don't know
if like, because for me, like as and Ellie with most horror games, you sort of get comfortable with the enemies. Like over time, you kind of get to that stage where you're just like, I can take this thing on. It's not that bad. But I like the idea, like you said in Left Behind, you do feel like I can't just run into a whole group of people. Whereas in the first game, after a while, I was just, you throw a brick at them, you stun them, you run in, you do the melee kill, and that's it. I like the idea of them sort of changing the pace of gameplay and sort of, like you said, like, you know, putting you on the back foot, making you consider combat and things like that. It should kind of go hand in hand with a more threatening overall world.
Definitely.
So that stuff's cool. The last note is just that apparently the AI's been, the guy noticed a notable improvement in the AI.
Okay, yeah.
Which again goes back to that old gameplay stuff, where Ellie went into like this shop, she was running away from some of the humans, and she was sort of like hiding behind this desk counter or whatever, and a bunch of people came in to sort of chase her, and they fanned out to try and explore the area that she was in.
Yeah, that was really hard.
And it's like, I like the idea that they're sort of like ferreting you out kind of thing, but I assume they also mean that like the clicker AI is different. But like, I don't know, what do you think of the AI in the first one? I thought it was like pretty solid.
I thought it was really good, but I think you could learn the paths of some zombies the infected, excuse me.
It's near.
Excuse me, the cordyceps infected. I think you could learn the path of those if you ended up dying quite a lot on. I think what I'd like to see is it a bit more Alien Isolation sort of style.
Oh, cool.
Where like you don't know where it's going to go. If you die loads, it doesn't mean it's going to happen in the same way again. It can appear all over the place. I think having that like directed towards the infected and the human enemies as well, like people that unexpectedness, I think is a good part again of horror games, of spooky, scary, gory, horrible games. If you don't know where it's going to come from, it makes it 10 times better. So if that's the sort of level of upgrade in the AI we're going to get, I think that would be a really good way of doing it.
Because I think, have you played Metal Gear Solid 2 and 3?
No.
Okay, so in those games, there's a whole thing. I remember them showing. This is a weird tangent, but it'll make sense. In Metal Gear 2, there's a whole thing where you run away as main character Solid Snake, and you go to hide. And if you're being chased by some guards, if you're in like a position to hide somewhere, then they'll show you the security camera feed of the guards coming in after you.
Okay.
And it's very much like a SWAT team going in kind of thing. And I love those little moments. I think hardly any stealth games have really honed in on like the enemy perspective chasing after you. There's a really good horror game called Siren Blood Curse that does that as well.
Yeah.
Shows you the enemy's perspective and stuff. I like the idea of like restoring the threat. I think that if you're going to do a sequel like this, you kind of need to reestablish that the cordyceps virus is a thing and the clickers are something to be feared, and it all kind of makes sense.
Definitely.
That's it for the new stuff. Although it is worth mentioning that I didn't realize that Naughty Dog have announced that Outbreak Day is on September 26th.
Yeah, I saw that.
Has that been a thing for a while?
So cute. It's like right near Jules' birthday as well. He's going to be like, woohoo.
Because apparently that's like a thing every year or whatever. And apparently like a lot of the fans sort of assume that they'll be showing something else there. And we also have the Tokyo Game Show September 12th to the 15th. That show tends to skew more towards the Death Strandings and the Personas and whatever, the Eastern companies of the world kind of thing. But it seems to be like we'll be getting something else in September. The version of the game that they showed, clearly it's pretty far along in development. But we don't even know when it's out yet though. What do you think in terms of release date? Because I think the rest of this year is completely just stuffed.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Just wait till next year.
They've had that like kind of rumor going around that it was February from the voice actor kind of dobbing herself in it. But I think there's something else that's come out recently where it might be March or May, something beginning with M. I think it's going to be slightly later than February from the rumors, but there's nothing confirmed yet, is there?
No, not yet. I mean, that was the thing from Ashley Johnson, who said, I forget what her exact quote was, but it was brilliant. It was just sort of like, we can expect to see that. And she was like, I wasn't talking about the game, I was talking about about like potentially seeing more of it. Like, and it's like, whatever, Ashley Johnson. I'm pretty sure it's coming next year. So there is that. I guess we might as well just end on like sort of general like thoughts about it. Like, where are you on Last of Us 2? Like, are you generally psyched for it? Or?
I'm so excited. I only played Last of Us recently as well. We did that podcast on it, check out the podcast, which was me actually finally catching up with PlayStation 4 exclusives. And having played it so recently and then getting number 2 so fast afterwards, I am so hyped for it. I think it's going to be fantastic, and I think the transformation of tone, as we've spoken about, will be great. I think seeing more of Ellie will be great. I think whatever they do with this world, it's going to be ridiculous after the absolute bombshell of the ending. So I just don't know what I'm getting, and that's the best part.
That was the weirdest thing with me, where as soon as they announced Last of Us 2, or when it leaked through Nolan North, I was like, we don't need one. We don't need. It's so good. I like the way that it ends. I like the ambiguous ending. I like that you can, infer whatever you want. But the general sort of like rumors about it are that like potentially Ellie's mum is still out there somewhere, and it makes sense that she would always have been out there. But apparently her mum's apparently going to come back. But I like the idea of either you extrapolate on Joel's lie and how far does he then have to go to keep lying to everybody about the Fireflies, or you extrapolate on Ellie's role as potentially the only person with a cure, and then maybe someone else has a cure, and then you kind of go from there. Like the commerce of that world, how much do people want to like chase after Ellie and things like that. So I like the general idea of like exploring like the power structures of that world, if Ellie being the cure kind of gets out there.
Oh my god, because there is the whole possibility that there's other like people who are immune and stuff that she could band up with, and
like a mum.
I feel like it's gonna go like full like Stranger Things season 2, that one episode that goes all over the place with that, the one that everyone hates. I think it could like do that, but in a good way.
Like a Last of Us TV show is that one episode where she goes and hangs out with everybody. But let us know what you think down in the comments below. Are you psyched for Last of Us 2, and what do you think about the potential new gameplay details? For now though, I've been Scott from WhatCulture.com.
And I've been Ash.
And you can do it. We'll catch you next time.
Bye.